Hello again, dear netizens. It's Amber, the talking poop, here to report the progress on the game Secret Life of Dorian Pink, a chill RPG where you take your time trying to rescue your boyfriend from being eaten by the devil. Just want to say before we start, thank you for the support in the comments on the previous devlog. It's funny because I almost wasn't going to post that one, but I considered my consistent track history of people tending to like the work that I didn't feel like showing. And of course, they don't care much for the work I really like myself. Anyway, really appreciate it. Okay, so I playtested the game so far with a few people, and there were a couple of problems with the game so far. Some minigames were too boring and lacked challenge, and while I had intended for Dorian Pink to be a chill game, well, it shouldn't be boring either. My brother who tested the game mentioned a boss fight of some sort, so I will have to work on that or try to figure out how to incorporate that in a humorous way, because that sounds like a great idea to make the gameplay more satisfying and funny. Currently, it feels like a lot of the action is in the dialogue. The playthrough was also very fast and short, which concerned me because I had said in another devlog I hoped that this game would be at least 2 hours. So I've got to work on encouraging exploration within the game, maybe by placing more NPCs around, or having those interaction notification things, like sort of like a speech bubble, pop up on items or people that you can interact with when you come near to them. So I'm still not sure, still figuring that out. A super awesome game instructor from Pratt Institute, which is the school that I graduated from, playtested it and gave a lot of helpful feedback, like more immersive sounds, introducing choice earlier in the game within the first few minutes, aesthetics, and all that. It is helpful to get input from a game designer because they know what's up. As I mentioned in a previous devlog, I'm working on the soundtracks in FL Studio, but I've been putting off music for a bit to code more on the game. I feel like some days coding is much easier and some days maybe art is much easier, and other days maybe music, etc. It's much easier not to force it and just go do whatever. After the playtesting, I felt like the game got set back a couple steps on the snake and ladder board, especially with all the bugs we found. But I suppose that's a normal reaction to have. I should focus on one thing at a time, just like how I told myself before I started this project, and eventually it will amount to a larger thing. I was really happy to get the constructive feedback. It's a different sort of nice feeling to have people actually play your game and have thoughts about it. Moving on, I'm not sure if I mentioned in another devlog, but for my dialog system, it's governed by a dialog manager GD script file. And I have features like end dialog, wait seconds, emit signals, and so on. But there was a feature I didn't know how to code at the time, or at least I was too sleep deprived to code. And that was conditionals. Basically, if this and this happened, then play this and this dialogue. If not, do something else. I came back to it almost a month later now since I made my dialogue system and used the first while loop in this whole game. I used to hate using while loops. I put the while loop in the start of the dialogue player. It's kind of hard to say while loop. Anyway, the first thing the dialog manager will do is to check if there's a conditional. In my dialog JSON file, it's called if. So for example, if the player chose apple instead of orange in an earlier scene, the game will save their choice. So in a later scene, while there is an if here that matches what I have in the game save data, then it will break out of the loop and continue like nothing happened. However, if there is a conditional, but it doesn't match what's in the game save data, then it will skip that line and loop again and again until it breaks out of the loop. I hope that helps at least one person who stumbled upon my devlog. I have been animating and creating NPCs you can talk to. They all have secret names, but you won't know until they tell you. If they tell you. I also added an interaction chat bubble thing that pops up whenever you come close to an interactable thing or person, which I mentioned before. It's quite satisfying for me personally to see the bubble thing pop up. I do polls a lot on my Instagram for my games, so if you want to, you can come visit me there. I actually am wondering if I should get into Twitter. I'm not on Twitter often, if ever, anymore, but it seems like that's where all the game devs are. Another thing I've been doing on Instagram was turning people into NPCs. What would you say if you were an insignificant NPC? I finally also implemented what I call the double or triple or multiple interaction. By default, I just call it double interaction. Basically, when you interact with a person once, the next time you interact with them, they say something different. So that's very common in the RPG world. I just don't know what it's called technically. I wrote down a couple ways to do this, but they were overly complicated, and if there's something I learned in my 7 months of game deving, it's to try not to make too many scripts depend on each other, because you'll lose your brains in the future as you try to work them out and then figure out bugs and stuff. What I did was I have this interaction singleton, and in that single GD script file I have an array. Every time you interact with a new character, it will append the character to the array. If the character exists in the array, the next time you interact with it, you play the other dialogue, and clear the array every time you go to a new scene. I realize I have been sharing more about dialogue systems in my game dev journey. It was because I had more problems with that personally, so I just assume many other people are the same, and hopefully it helps someone. A quick update on story and narrative. I have also went into Twine and revised some paths and tried to make every branch interesting. The thing with the Dorian Pink game is I don't want the players to think they can manipulate their way to a good ending, because that's not life. There is no explicitly good or bad ending, there's just consequences, so a choice like this may seem unimportant, but it might just be very important for the branching. I want to reflect real life. You don't always think or try to predict things before you speak, and it's usually the unimportant words that bring about the craziest changes or results. So the player should just be able to react however they like, and I will try my best to make every route epic in different kind of ways. And I'm working on it now. Since I wrote the script in the span of several months and I'm not even done yet, I have a lot to change and revise towards the beginning part of the script. The flow of the story has definitely changed a lot, and I'm just glad I figured out most of the crazy spider web thing going on and all the endings. This is like in high school when they force you to write outlines for essays, and while it's not always the best way to write, it's a way that your future self will thank you for. I still have a lot to talk about, but I think that's all for today's devlog. If you liked it, please like and subscribe. Let's hang out in the comment section. Let me know what other things you would like to see more of. And as always, check out the description for helpful GODOT links and other fun things. See you in the next one. Bye!